Hey guys, Shalana here. Welcome to the Binge Zone. On today's video, we're talking about number 7, Vanya Hargreeves, and the white violin. There's so much to get into, but if you guys are new here, hit the subscribe button if you guys haven't already for more Umbrella Academy breakdowns, more reviews, more in-depth explains of all the top movies and TV shows. And if you guys want to have a one-on-one debate, because I had asked the question in my last video and I'm going to ask it again in this video, who is more powerful, number 5 or Vanya, number 7? I want to hear your feedback in the comment section below. And if you guys want to have a one-on-one debate, follow me on Twitter. We can get into that on Twitter. And now to number 7, Vanya Hargreeves. Let me do a quick rundown of the origins. On October 1st, 1989, 43 women gave birth miraculously to 43 superpowered individuals. What made this so miraculous is the fact that at the start of the day, none of these women were pregnant, but in a matter of seconds, they conceived, carried to term, and gave birth to 43 out-of-this-world children. And thus comes in Reginald Hargreeves, the eccentric billionaire who tries to get his hands on as much of these kids as possible. He only manages to get 7, and he aptly names them 1 through 7 based on their usefulness, and Vanya was called 7. And there's two connotations to being called number 7. That means she's the 7th most useful to him. However, her power might be 7 on the scale of who's more powerful, who's weakest. Luther being the physically strongest but having the weakest ability, and Vanya's powers being super powerful, sound manipulation, the manipulation of not just sound but the entire electromagnetic spectrum. But before we get too deep into the scope of Vanya's powers, because her powers, as we saw in the season finale, can blow up the fucking moon. But before we get there, let's look at a bit of Vanya's backstory and understand why her powers are so repressed and how they're so powerful. When Reginald adopted these 7 children, his main goal was to create a superhero team that he could control in order to save the world. And then he has Vanya, whose abilities are tied closely to her emotions. And it's not just Vanya, but every member of the Umbrella Academy's powers are deeply tied to their emotional state. And Vanya had a temper as a child, killing various nannies until Reginald created their artificial mom, Grace. And when Vanya had her fits, she couldn't kill Grace, and that kind of reined her in. And Reginald began to actually train her. He had her begin training her powers using a tuning fork as well as glass to get her to manipulate small sound waves before he moved on to greater and grandiose sounds. However, every time a loud noise happened or thunderstorm, that ability and that sound was channeled to Vanya, and her powers became uncontrollable, to the point where Reginald realized because of her emotional instability, her temper, her mood swings, he was unable to control Vanya, so he locked her up in a soundproof room and he began drugging her to put her in a more comatose, docile state in which her emotions weren't as vulnerable and she was pretty much walking like a living shell, a living vegetable. And then he had number 3, Allison, use her mental manipulation to manipulate Vanya into thinking that she had no abilities. And then when he actually unveiled the Umbrella Academy to the world, he said that he adopted 6 of these kids, not 7, leaving Vanya out of the picture and ostracizing her from the rest of her siblings as an ordinary girl. And because of this, everyone pretty much shunned Vanya because she was just normal in their eyes. But Allison, who knew the secret, always had a soft spot for her because she knew what was done to Vanya. So throughout the years, Vanya just lived in their shadows till she finally left with the rest of the Umbrella Academy, and then she wrote a tell-all book how it was to live in that house, exposing pretty much how shitty of a person Reginald Hargreeves was and airing out a bunch of dirty family secrets which none of the members of the Umbrella Academy actually were fond of. The only one who actually even spoke to her afterwards was Allison. But after Reginald died and they all came back to the house, we come to see just how fractured Vanya's life is. It's sheltered, it's to herself. She's docile because of her medication. But as the season progressed in the first season and she starts to get closer to Harold and she begins to use her powers, we begin to realize that Vanya is that chick. Like, her powers are through the roof. And that's because Vanya's powers are the absorption, manipulation of sound waves. Now, you might think of sound waves as just like the waves coming out of a speaker, or as I'm talking to you guys now, the sound traveling from my voice, the waves is hitting the microphone and then it gets digitized, and then those sound waves are replicated through your speakers, your headphones, wherever you're listening to. But it goes beyond just that, because think about it. For this microphone to absorb the sound, digitize it, and then release it towards you guys when you can't really send sound waves through wires unless you're actually digitizing, changing, and manipulating the electromagnetic frequencies of said sound waves. And then we get into the nitty-gritty of Vanya's powers, electromagnetic manipulation. A quick rundown on the electromagnetic spectrum is it's the fabric of pretty much everything in the universe. The colors, the lights, everything we see is a wavelength on the electromagnetic spectrum. Moving metal like Magneto does, listening to sounds, breathing, energy manipulation, all that is a form of electromagnetic manipulation. And Vanya has the ability to move all that. We saw in the season when her power started manifesting, she could pull people, push them, magnetism, gravity, all that are different aspects of the electromagnetic spectrum. And when she took that and she converted it into energy, shot it at the moon and blew up the moon, holy shit, that was power. That is her ripping the fabrics of what holds the universe together and just showing the full extent of her power. If she can manipulate that, she can harness that, absorb that power, it puts her on a category, a tier above all the other members of the Umbrella Academy, except for, of course, number 5. Because number 5's ability is space-time manipulation. Space and time is another fundamental law of existence. You have the electromagnetic spectrum, and then you have space and time. These are pillars of creation themselves, and we have 2 members of the Umbrella Academy who can actually manipulate that. And then you have someone like Diego, who can manipulate kinetic force and kinetic energy. Klaus, who can actually converse with the dead and talk to and conjure up the dead. And then you have someone like Allison, whose powers come from actually speaking and auditory manipulation, which is a function of the sound waves, which puts her powers on a similar scale to that of Vanya's. But Vanya takes it to another level. You have all these members of the Umbrella Academy. Number 6, Ben, who can conjure up demons from another dimension, ripping holes through reality. All the members are super powerful, and then you have Luther. I'm sorry, but why did they do my dog Luther like that? All he has is super strength and a monkey body. Luther sucks compared to the rest of them. But back to Vanya. Her abilities make her the most powerful, or arguably the most destructive member of the Umbrella Academy, because that goes to show Vanya's ability to manipulate actual space and actual matter and the electromagnetic spectrum to the point where she can hear sounds from miles away, convert that sound to energy, change the weather, as we saw based on her emotions. The frequencies she lets out can actually cause thunderstorms, rain, and wind. She can actually destabilize the Earth's magnetic core if push comes to shove. Her powers are so much more physical than any other person on the Umbrella Academies. It's baffling, and we could see why Reginald had a hard time controlling it, because no one person should have such great power, but the White Violin does. But then I ask you guys, given all that, is she more powerful than number 5? Is manipulating the fundamental forces of the physical world more powerful than traversing and manipulating the fundamental forces of time itself? I want to hear your feedback in the comment section below. But guys, that's Vanya, number 7 of the Umbrella Academy. If you guys are new here, hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and until next time, binge on.